Chairman, and thank you, panel, for being here today. This is a subject that vexes people in both parties at all levels of government, so I'm thrilled that you're willing to address these issues today. I'm going to start with something called permit by rule, which is something that President Trump has touted in an executive order. I have a bill that would authorize permit by rule. My co-sponsor is Mr. Budd. It's called the Full Responsibility and Expedited Enforcement Act, the FREE Act. So my question is, Mr. Harrell, how can implementing permit by rule streamline federal permitting while ensuring robust environmental protections? And what steps should Congress take to ensure agencies follow up on these reforms?
Thank you, Senator, and thanks for your leadership on this issue. I mean, this is the type of think big item, right? How can we shift to a build and comply structure rather than this arduous multi-step process? In many cases, projects face unnecessary case-by-case reviews that aren't getting us any better benefits for the environment. It purely is just driving out the length of the review process and driving up costs. That's not good for the consumer. It's not good for the environment. And so agencies are going to need to set out the rules of the road, which I think your bill lays out in the early stages. And then I think Congress is going to need to codify that, because in the end, this can't be a structure. This shift is a big change. It can't go on the ebbs and changes of an administration. We need a regulatory system that works for the next 40 years, not for the next 4 years. And this is the type of thing that I think we can take a significant chunk of projects off and streamline for projects that have like characteristics, are built in the same type of areas, or need to comply in the same way.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Harrell. I don't think it's for every situation. But for a very standard situation that has consistent, replicable compliance standards, it might work well. So thank you. Look forward to working with you all on that. Mr. Harris, I'm going to turn to you. In Wyoming, we have a housing shortage. There's a community, very small community, Kemmer, Wyoming, where this TerraPower nuclear power plant is going to come in and have construction job demands that are going to require housing. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this issue, given your experience in small volume home building in a state that's very similar to my state of Wyoming.
Thank you very much, Senator, for the question. I think the community, the community needs to decide where the housing needs to go, and then work together with builders and the federal authorities about what's the most appropriateness for that. You reduce those barriers and you'll start having more builders want to build homes, either for rent, wherever they build on the housing ladder, whether it's temporary housing, apartments, to first-time home buyers, to move-up housing. All of that takes the cooperation. Real estate development is really community development, and how we can all work together to get these houses built in the communities that need them.
So how can streamlining permitting help homeowners?
Well, it will lower the price, because the cost of regulation continues to drive. So if I decide to, if I have to jump through a lot of hoops to develop a piece of land, then that increases the cost per acre or per lot that I'm going to need on that home. And then eventually that will be passed on to the home buyer. But each one of those regulations continues to work through that. The permitting process needs to be well-defined, consistent, every time.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask one more question, changing subjects to something called Class 6. I invite any of you, I suspect maybe Mr. Harrell, this is for you, but any one of you is welcome to weigh in. States can expedite permitting by directly implementing federal requirements. There's something called Class 6 primacy that allows for that. Wyoming successfully applied for and received this Class 6 primacy, but I'm told that the EPA has 151 pending Class 6 permit applications, while only 4 have been granted. For any of you who's familiar with this Class 6, what reforms can ensure that states seeking Class 6 can navigate the process more quickly and with greater certainty?
Senator, I'm happy to hop in there. I mean, Class 6 primacy is an area where you're shifting responsibility to the folks who are closer on the ground, who can move more quickly, and the law requires them to still have the same environmental standards. So it's a no-brainer that we can move faster, bring those decisions back to the lower level. And there is probably no better example over the last 4 years, that and particularly in clean energy, that shows that just throwing money at the problem isn't fixing it. Between the infrastructure bill and annual appropriations, EPA has gotten more resources to process these, and they continue to move at a palatial speed. Yeah. We've got to set clear timelines. They need to be more transparent about where they are in the process, particularly with states. It needs to be a more iterative process. If they see something in the state proposal that isn't meeting the federal standard to take on this responsibility, that needs to be up front. I think we can move much faster on this. It was exciting to see West Virginia get cleared here recently, and there are a bunch of states in the pipeline that I think could benefit from this. And then the federal regulators can focus on more complicated projects in places like California, for example, that aren't going to explore primacy.
And it is proving successful for states that have already received Class 6 primacy?
Your state, North Dakota, are 2 great examples. Wyoming and North Dakota are moving these projects in under a year, where the federal process, as you mentioned, has 150-plus projects in the pipeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our committee. I appreciate your being here today.